So, how to buff up your art book, sketchbook, whatever. I call my art book a sketchbook, but it is kind of like more collage and a lookbook, inspiration, whatnot, than me particularly sketching on the pages, though most of these are sketches to a degree, as in they're messy, one note, I don't really work on them. But at the beginning of the sketchbook, it was very, very basic stuff and some elements of collage, but obviously we jacked it up like 10 million times that. So how did we get from point A to point B? So here's some of my tips, tricks, and general buffing up of my sketchbook, per se. I think I'll be putting a couple pages on here, but I don't know which ones I'm going to pick, but so I'll probably put out my best ones. But obviously there's some pages in my sketchbook that do hit, some that don't, and it really is a process of mixing stuff up and hoping that it sticks. So let's start with general tips. Collect a lot of scraps, and I mean like a lot. One thing about me is I am a horrid collector of garbage. And though I don't see it as garbage, I see it as stuff that can be repurposed. Most of it is really just like your average receipt, tag, cardboard box, specifically like cardboard boxes from stuff like Pop Mart. The few times that I get them, those can last you for a while if you know what you're doing. Because they have very unique colors, shapes, patterns, whatnot. So they're one of your best bets when it comes to like using something for a base. But you can really use any cardboard, any scrap that you can find. I'll use clippings, cardboard, just anything with a unique enough pattern that I want to keep this. I store it in this paper bag that I keep in my closet. And that paper bag has broke on multiple occasions because of how big that little paper bag is, but collect a lot because you never know when you're gonna need it, you know? So might as well keep it a little bit stacked. If you like it, keep it, because one of the things about making a sketchbook or making it buffed up in a sense is you want it to be a collage of things that you like, because then if you like it, then you're proud of it, basically. So I sort of built an inventory on stuff, not just with scraps, but also an inventory of, I guess, stationery that I use and some of the things that I use that I think are important mostly, in this case, is double-sided tape. That helps out. But you don't specifically need double-sided tape. For my beginning pieces, I used a lot of just normal tape. I would roll it up, stick it on there, though I think glue works well too. But for the most part, double-sided tape saves me a lot of time. I used to have a roller double-sided tape thing, but that ran out recently, so I've just been using the Scotch double-sided tape, but it significantly decreases your time on a project if you're worried about that. Also, things that I use, mechanical pencil. It's usually a specific mechanical pencil, but that's because I'm picky. You can use whatever medium stationery that you want. And one of the other things that I think helped me out a lot, acrylic markers. I think at some point a couple months ago, like January, I caved in and got those grabby acrylic markers, and they've lasted me very long, and they work generally well with different mediums. And that's especially helpful when I'm trying to do a very colorful piece. So get colorful stationery as a whole. It's going to help you out, especially layerable ones. I think my last tip, if you can even call any of these tips, is fill it with things that you like or you love. And I know that it's going to be really scary to maybe use those stickers that you're like, oh, I really don't want to use them. Because I used to hoard a bunch of these like stickers and one-time use like items because I worried that I wasn't going to have a piece where it was completely perfect, right? But over time, I just kind of realized that they're going to just sit and rot in my like little bag. So I might as well use them in places I see them necessary or find a spot to use them. And sometimes I'll make creative pieces specifically to use that sticker. So maybe if you want to like consider that an option. But yeah, so now let's get into the general process. For this, I have a slowed down video of a time lapse because I wasn't expecting it to like take as short of a time as it did. So please bear with me. So basically here I'm picking out a bunch of different scraps, pieces of things, trying to work out a general color palette. Because one of the things that I like to do with these sketchbooks is decide a theme. A couple of them are food themed, so then after that I kind of try and find things that fit the color palette that I'm thinking of. This one was a little bit lenient. It was mostly pinks, yellows, muted, like pale, and that was the general color scheme. And this specific thing was shrimp themed. As you can tell, I get really hungry when I'm making these. So I just used a couple cardboard things to reinforce it because what I'm using is a Daiso sketchbook. That's what I use for this little like scrapbook. So it's not very thick. I usually start off a page by reinforcing it a little bit just so that way it's not as flimsy when I put 10 million different layers on these things. Though if you have a more sturdy sketchbook, then I don't really think you need this. But if you want it to be buffed up in the sense that you want it to be really thick when you hold it, then I recommend reinforcing it just a little bit. And I don't really put that on the spine because the spine is a little bit weak on mine. So if you want it to be flared up outward, definitely put it near the end. And sometimes I'll use those things to extend the page also. So yeah, reinforcing and layering from there. Then I kind of like start off with a base drawing. This video, I had the base drawing already done, but sometimes I'll have a color palette, a theme already picked out, and then I draw something related to that. And it's sometimes just a very basic sketch. Other times I'll decide to use a couple markers and layer them sparingly depending on how much I'm dedicated to that piece. But from there, it's just kind of like planning out the layering. And sometimes I'll take a photo of the pre-planned out layering. And most of the time that does not work out for me because I realize that I need so much more space for the actual drawing that I kind of take some stuff out, rearrange them. But you don't exactly need a general plan. I find my pieces turn out a little bit better when I have a plan, but you really, really don't need one. And then you just, after that, kind of layer and layer and layer. And I don't really have anything to say on that besides just go with what you feel is right, because there's no real right or wrong way to do this. This is really just your process. And at the end of it, I slam so many stickers on that thing. I think you can see my little blue pouch, but that thing is crammed with stickers. And I'm actually running out of them because I've gotten so used to like slamming a bunch of them onto a piece. So I might need to restock on my stickers, but very fun to do. I think sticker putting on is my favorite part of the process just because you're like whamming a bunch of stuff onto it. And yeah, that's my general process. I guess in closing, sketchbooks I think are very fun. This is obviously not a sketchbook as in, unplanned, uncoordinated, like raw sketches. This is more of an inspiration lookbook of sorts and also a bit of scrapbooking. But it's not really finished pieces in my case. I don't see most of these as finished. They're more like half-baked stuff that I think is cute. And as somebody who's only really huge on the digital medium, sometimes working with traditional can be really difficult. So by forcing myself to work on this little sketchbook, it kind of forces me to do traditional artwork and keep exercising my hand on that while also being something that I enjoy doing. I didn't realize how much I loved collage until I started really doing it, and it stopped me from hoarding a bunch of stuff and leaving it to rot. So yeah, it's a ton of fun, and I hope that this video, in all of its unedited and unorganized glory, has at least gave you something to take away from it. And I guess here is a look at the page itself. I think it was one of the nicer ones, and I finished this in a lot quicker time than I was expecting, maybe because I felt like I was under stress filming for this, and I didn't really have a stand, so I was kind of using a bunch of cans to film this. If you do see them in the corner, I'm so sorry. I did not have a phone stand for this, so you might see a couple can of beans over there. But yeah, as a whole, these things really don't have to be perfect. I think it's better to just ricochet a bunch of stuff and then hope it sticks. As I do with most things, it's more or less the process. So yeah.